Welcome back to Definitely Not Definitive. I'm Ken.
And I'm Bethany.
And we're just a rowdy couple in love that loves reacting to some RWBY.
Yeah, we do.
And so today we're checking out World of Remnant. We got 4 episodes to check out. Originally, we had planned to check this out and tack these on to episodes that we had already watched, but I messed that up and I kind of totally forgot. I just got engrossed in the story. So these were supposed to be ones that we checked out earlier. We're checking them out right now. All right, so we're gonna check out 13, 14, 15, and 16, if I believe so. Yes. 13, 14, 15, and 16 that we're gonna check out for World of Remnant. Between Kingdoms, Faunus, the Schnee Dust Company, and the Great War.
Ooh.
Yes, okay. If you want all of our RWBY reactions, check out the description of this video. We got a playlist there for you, as well as a link to our Patreon. You can get early ad-free access to our reactions.
So, now you know more about the kingdoms. But what's between the big cities? Alright, the easy answer is Rim. There's no reason to beat around the bush. They're out there. And it probably won't go well if you run into one.
Oh, you're dead.
That's okay, because you're a huntsman. Or huntress. And you've trained at one of the major academies, so you're probably fine. Just don't get yourself overrun by a pack of them. Now, after a long day of killing Grimm and saving the world, you're going to probably want to stop at a small town inn. Small villages dot the land between the major cities. You might ask, with the wilderness being so dangerous, why not just live in the big cities? Well, that life isn't meant for everyone. These small towns are founded by people that have a problem with the kingdoms, or don't want to deal with the kingdom's problems, or maybe just enjoy the simpler life and would rather take their chances in the wild than in a kingdom. It goes about as well as you'd think. If the founders are smart, then there's a good chance these towns can survive for the same reason the kingdoms continue to. Natural barriers, strong defenses,
nice.
And stubborn citizens. If you don't have at least a few of those, then
you're toast.
The chances of a town lasting more than a year isn't great.
A year, damn.
Unfortunately, it's not just the Grimm running around ruining towns. Wandering bandits are another threat. These groups of usually fairly skilled fighters travel the lands, never settling in one place. They often prey on convoys, sending goods between kingdoms. But that's not all. These raiders will often wait for a town to be at its weakest, maybe after a Grimm attack or while its fighters are out hunting, before finally moving in at night and striking. Bunch of jerks.
Bunch of jerks.
The worst part is, if the Grimm hadn't attacked before, you'd better be damn sure they will now. And you can't exactly have bandits raid your town without at least a few negative emotions.
Yep. Well, they bring the negative emotions even without setting things on fire.
Stay in the towns they conquer. With attitudes like the ones they have, Grimm tend to be pretty interested in them as well. As long as they keep moving, they've got a better chance of survival.
Okay, that makes sense.
Besides these small towns, the areas between kingdoms really depend on the continent. Harsh deserts, icy tundras, lush forests, you name it. At this point, pretty much every inch of Remnant has been mapped out. Although there are some areas that no one's gone into and come out alive. And of course, somewhere out there is where she is. You know, most of us spend a lot of time talking about mankind versus Grimm, but technically there is a third party in the mix, the Faunus. In case you're not in the know, the Faunus are a species on Remnant that appear to be human in just about every way but one. Each faunus has a single animalistic trait, some more apparent than others. Ram horns, tiger claws, cat ears. I swear, on my huntsman's license, I once saw a guy regrow his severed lizard tail. Ooh. I swear, no amount of drinking can make you forget that pretty picture. As far as everyone's aware, faunus have been around as long as mankind, if not a little longer. History gets a little fuzzy past a certain point, but we do know that their kind and ours are completely compatible from a biological standpoint. Take 2 wolf faunus, and you get a little wolf cub kiddo. A wolf faunus and a human also typically means your little bundle of joy's teething phase could get a little dicey. But if you take a wolf faunus and a bull faunus, for example, it's a complete roll of the dice. For all you know, you could be cleaning up your son's shedded snake skin.
Oh, wow.
Scientists are still scratching their heads when it comes to, well,
that's kind of cool.
A lot about the faunus. But science isn't the real problem. It's how we all get along. Or in this case, how we don't. Early man was scared to death of the faunus, and honestly, it's not too hard to sympathize with that. Seeing something that looks like you and acts like you walk out of the forest and reveal a pair of fangs can be a little upsetting. Like most things man doesn't understand, all sorts of rumors and stories surround the faunus. People avoided them like the plague, pushing them out of settlements and sometimes even hunting them down. Man began to outnumber the faunus, and the faunus began to consider man nothing more than a hostile species. Can't really blame them. These clashes between species were unavoidable, as land that was safe from the Grim was in constant short supply. But it was the Grim that finally brought humans and faunus together for the first time. A village in Sanus fell under attack, and the only reason anyone survived was because the humans and faunus united against their common enemy. It was a step in the right direction, but it didn't fix everything. Once humanity learned they weren't so different from the faunus, they still used those differences as an excuse to exploit and alienate them. The treatment of the faunus differed around the world, and things wouldn't improve much for them until the Great War. Veil and vacuo against mantle and mistral, a war unlike anyone had ever seen. And when it was over, the world was desperate to find compromises that would ensure they'd never see the likes of it again. Faunus were awarded equal rights as citizens of Remnant, and as an apology, they were given an entire continent of their own to do with as they pleased. There were some that saw this as fair and just, but many saw it for what it really was, a slap in the face from a nation of sore losers. And so Menagerie was born. There's still faunus all over the world, though the fair treatment they were promised varies in quality from place to place. But Menagerie will always be their safe haven. Here's the thing, though. You can only push and prod people so much before they reach a tipping point. And when you pack those people together, it just makes it all the easier for them to get organized and get even.
Ominous.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this one. I want to know what the Schnee does company.
All right. What was I supposed to talk about next?
Oh, great. He's drunk again.
Oh, boy. Yeah, okay. I've got a few words to say about this one. The Schnee Dust Company. Bunch of self-entitled, monopolizing SNOBs who only care about making a profit, no matter how many little people they gotta step on to make it happen. But that's just my opinion. As you all know, our survival in the world of Remnant depends almost entirely on a crystallized substance known as dust. It powers our cities, fuels our machines, and gives us a fighting chance against the creatures of Grimm, which means it's extremely valuable. Now, Nowadays, it's almost impossible to buy dust products without the Schnee Company snowflake stamped on the box. But it didn't always used to be that way. Nicholas Schnee was the son of a dust miner turned soldier. Born just after the Great War, he found himself at the perfect point in history to take full advantage of the world's next industrial revolution.
Right time, right place.
The kingdom of Mantle, soon to be Atlas, was in a transformative period. They'd found themselves on the forefront of technology, but realized they depleted nearly all of their natural resources to do so. That's where old Nick came in. Rather than watch his kingdom become dependent on the aid of others, young Nicholas Schnee decided to spend his days at combat school, his nights working alongside his father in the dwindling Mantle mines, and any time in between learning everything he could about anything he didn't know. That kid had a fire in his belly.
Yeah. When did he sleep?
His father died, he left his son everything he had. It wasn't much, but it was enough for Nick to set his plan into action. He left school, rallied all the men he could afford, and set out on an expedition to find a dust deposit that could revitalize his kingdom. And wouldn't you know, he actually pulled it off. Fast forward just a few years, and the name Schnee suddenly meant something. Quality, affordability, trust. See, all those years spent in combat school were so that Nick could personally oversee every new expedition. People appreciate a man who's willing to stick his neck out for them. And it's how the Schnee Dust Company earned the business of every kingdom in Remnant. Unfortunately, it's also what led to an early retirement. Nick had started a family that missed him, and his body was tired. Years of working in dust mines can have some nasty side effects on your health. And so enters Jacques Joulet. Having married into the family, Jacques decided to take the Schnee name over his own. He was a lot of words I shouldn't repeat. Most importantly, he was a cunning businessman. Jacques managed to convince Nicholas that he was the perfect man to run the SDC in his place. And from a certain point of view, he was right. Under Jacques' leadership, the Schnee Dust Company has become more profitable than ever, completely dominating the industry, but at the cost of the company's soul. Cheap labor, dangerous working conditions, doing whatever it takes to destroy the competition.
So he's Bezos.
Jacques Schnee doesn't care about people. He cares about winning. That, and making sure he's got the best damn PR team in the world. The Schnee name still means something today, but as for what it'll mean tomorrow, well, your guess is as good as mine.
Oh. Nice.
That was a good segue.
Right?
The Great War. What a terrible name for such a horrible time in history. Though the war itself lasted around 10 years, the century leading up to it was filled with so much tension, you might as well lump them together. And most of that tension was coming from Mistral. Territories rich with resources and safe from Grimm have always been in high demand. But the Emperor of Mistral had managed to conquer nearly all that Anima had to offer.
Damn.
Thanks in part to an unlikely friend, Mantle. The two kingdoms had formed an alliance. Mistral provided the small kingdom with goods unavailable in the frozen tundra. In return, Mantle introduced technological innovation as well as guidance in the settlement of Anima's cold northern territory. It was good, until it wasn't. An incident in Mantle led to a strange and unexpected decree: the abolishment of the arts and repression of self-expression. The people of Mantle had come to believe that they would be much safer from the Grimm if they could simply keep the emotions of the masses in check. Given Mistral's strong, artistic culture, many assumed this would be the end of their alliance. But they were wrong. Mistral complied, selectively, enforcing Mantle's wishes only in the outer territories, allowing the centralized powers to
Mantle kinda
continue to
became like
live
the
as they
Jedi.
pleased. If you haven't caught on yet, Mistral's full of jerks. The people of
But I
Vale
like
had
Mistral.
a problem with this. Well, they had a problem with a lot of things Mistral and Mantle had been up to. Treatment of their citizens, use of slave labor, and their constant insistence that their way of life was what was best for everyone. Eventually, Mistral made the jump across the sea to the eastern coast of Samus. The small islands and peninsulas in the area were perfect to establish a settlement. They were so perfect, in fact, that Vale had just begun settling the area themselves. I think we can all guess what happened next. The King of Vale did everything he could to avoid armed conflict. Despite cries from his people, he insisted on sharing the land with the settlers from Mistral. But to this day, no one knows who shot first.
No good deed goes unpunished.
But what began as a riot between the two bands of settlers had suddenly become the first battle of the Great War. Mantle quickly came to Mistral's side. Battles were fought on both Sanis and Anima soil. Villages were lost to both combat and Grimm. And it wasn't long before Vacuo decided to join the party. Up to this point, Vacuo had done its best to stay out of the fight. Mantle and Mistral, having both already established a small presence in Vacuo territory years before, promised to leave them provided they didn't interfere. Soon, those talks evolved. It went from don't side with them to side with us and you'll be safe. Vacuo did not much care for that. They came to the conclusion that if Vale were to fall, there'd be no one left to stop Mistral and Mantle from conquering them next.
Smart.
So they did what they considered to be the logical thing. They drove Mantle and Mistral out of Vacuo and told Vale they had their backs. I love their style. So the war raged on. Grim attacks increased worldwide. On the battlefield, this meant a temporary ceasefire in order to deal with the hordes of monsters before returning to the fight at hand. Those left miserable back at home, however, were often helpless with their best warriors away fighting the good fight. A lot of settlements were lost during these years, and most were never reclaimed. Rations on food and dust were put into effect. Development of technology accelerated. Humans and
World on
faunas who
fire.
fought alongside one another became closer. And every day, mankind grew more and more efficient at destroying itself. But it all ended in the Vacuo campaign. Mistral and Mantle knew that if they could take the dust mines of Vacuo, they would effectively cut off the supply of dust to their enemy. It was to be a final devastating blow to Vale and Vacuo. They were only half right. The King of Vale personally led his army into battle alongside the soldiers of Vacuo and decimated the enemy forces.
Damn.
Crown atop his head and armed only with a sword and his scepter, he laid waste to countless men.
Wow.
As the sand was soaked red with blood, the Grimm came in droves. It was the single deadliest battle of the war, and legends of the greatness and terror of the warrior king were born that day. Historians will tell you most of these stories are nothing but grandiose hyperbole. Unusually violent weather conditions combined with Mantle's unfamiliarity with the desert combat are likely what led to such a high death count. But whatever the reasoning, everyone bowed to the King of Vale by the time it was over. The Great War had ended. The world was ready to live under the rule of Vale. But the king refused. The leaders of the Four Kingdoms met on the island of Vital. And it was there that they worked together to form a treaty and establish the future of Remnant. Territories were redistributed, slavery was abolished, governments restructured, and the warrior king, the last king Vale would ever have, founded the Huntsman Academies and placed his most trusted followers in command of each kingdom's school. He would teach the world to fight so long as we promised to fight for ourselves and never against ourselves. Seems like we haven't kept our end of the bargain.
Yeah. Okay, so what'd you think?
I love these little things. We get to dive into the lore
Yeah.
and kind of get the history lessons that you don't have otherwise. So many parts about this that were so fascinating and such great social commentaries.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of going towards the Great War as the most interesting one because it encompasses the world, and there's no one of our characters who would not be impacted or touched by it. But I think second to that is the Schnee Dust Company. I love learning about the Faunus, but I kind of feel like we already really knew that. I mean, the bottom line on that is people suck. And they are violent and hateful towards things they don't know or understand.
Yep.
And we know that from the real world. So it's
Although the one thing I thought was pretty cool in that one was the fact that, like, if depending on if two different Faunus mate, their kid could be like a coin, like, roll the dice up to what it is. It could be something completely different. I thought that was kind of cool.
Which I'm so glad that they added that kind of clarifier in there. Because at first when they said, oh, it could be a roll of a dice between a boar and a wolf, I'm like, oh, so it could be either one.
Yeah.
And he goes, no. It could be a snake. Like, it could be something totally unrelated. And that, I agree, that was fascinating. I think the Schnee Dust Company one, I mean, God, what a history to Weiss's family. I mean, I think I've said it in the last episode or one of the more recent ones, how proud I was of Weiss for the woman that she is becoming and that she's not her father.
Yeah.
But when you look at the family and the backstory and kind of the lineage where they come from, it's an even bigger accomplishment than her immediate parent being a complete asshat. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I just like the commentary on like what the Grimm sort of like represent. I mean, the Grimm are PTSD. The Grimm are like generational resentment. The Grimm are, all these things that like come from like, they feed up, they get drawn to negative emotions, but what they are like in our life, like you don't have to battle these like big ass like demon like crows and beasts and snakes and everything like that. But we just got to deal with them in different ways that feed off of negative emotions, whether, that's our own like hatred or our own resentment towards things. We all have our own Grimm to battle.
Yeah, I mean, people are light and shadow. If somebody tells you that they have no darkness in them or no shadow side, well, they're trying to sell you something. Beware. I don't know why I didn't kind of like piece it together before, but the social commentary on the world that we're living in, for some reason, was so apparent to me tonight in what we watched, just in terms of like the negative emotions drawing demons and monsters out. I mean, because when you look at the world, especially if like you watch news, you hear all of the terrible stories. I mean, one of the reasons that I think John Krasinski started Some Good News in the pandemic was because all we were hearing was terrible things all the time. Yeah. And hearing nothing but negativity and feeling those negative emotions that are coming with that, it brings out a darkness. It makes you see the world as a darker place. So you need to kind of counterbalance that with some good news and some positivity and the fact there is still light in the world. And the Great War and Between Kingdoms were like the two tonight that just kind of like really highlighted that fact. And I think you said it well, that we all have our Grimms to battle, and we do. And hurt people. So people who aren't battling their own demons well are the ones who are liable to act out and hurt others, whether intentionally or not. But that's because they're hurting and they don't know how to handle their pain.
Yeah, and I think that also, like, I mean, they've shown that, and they're not the only company that does it, whatever, but Facebook, like, would show you stuff that, like, it was, like, meant to make you angry.
Yep.
And it's, like, because that is such, like, a strong and powerful emotion, like, and it gets people to lash out and to engage and to, you know, that's what drives people a lot. And like happiness is like not, because like nobody is just happy. Nobody just sits around smiling all the time. Like those are lunatics, and those people are
the Joker.
Yeah, exactly. The Joker. All right. So nobody is just happy. Happy is not a state of being. Happy is just like, you know, it's an emotion that arises and it comes and goes. Okay. Yep. No one is happy. Like happiness really is contentment. And so, but when you're content, you're not going out and I don't know, like that's why people like, don't want to be content, because then they feel like they'll get lazy and you know, complacent and everything, and then they'll lose their hunger and their drive, and so that's what they want to keep feeding you, like, you know, stuff that'll make you angry and keep you engaged. Because if you're content and you're complacent, then you know things can just roll off your back, and you know you don't need to engage as much, and you're content. Things are good. There's
a really great documentary that was on Netflix. It might still be. I think it's called The Social Experiment. But basically they're interviewing all of the creators of social media and the people who founded it and who have since left Silicon Valley because of what they saw being done in terms of the algorithm, the negative uses of it, and the negative impacts from it. And so they talk about kind of its inception and what they were going for and all of the amazing, positive, wonderful things that could come from it, but then also seeing how the desire for money and making it bigger and getting more was pushing it towards these negative things that were, you know, that's how we have clickbait. Clickbait almost always is going to be something horrible. It's going to be, did you hear about J-Lo and Ben Affleck divorcing? We've got the scoop. It probably isn't a divorce. Probably they had an argument in a restaurant over who's going to pick up the check, and it means nothing. But the clickbait is, well, we interpreted that to mean their marriage is on the rocks, and like it goes into this whole thing. But clickbait.
You clicked on that, didn't you?
No. Clickbait is inherently negative. Because negativity is what we feel like we have to know. There's a survival instinct in our brain, which is programmed to pick up on bad news for self-preservation. And like the story of like the boy and his cute little puppy dog, I don't have time for that right now. The world's ending tomorrow. Shit, I need to know what's going on. Like we have that in our brain. And so the algorithm naturally picks up on the fact that negative gets more, therefore it feeds more negativity. And there are Grims in the world. Well,
negativity and wishful thinking. I mean, like I think a lot of times, you know, other clickbait things are just like, you know, you want to get rich really fast? Here's a surefire way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, it's just...
A lot of YouTube videos around stuff like that.
You want to find your, you know, the love of your life? Here are 5 tips that'll make you like, you know. So now we kind of went off on a tangent there, but that's what's so great about RWBY is that, like, you know, there's a lot of social commentary in here, and, you know, a lot of, it always gets great discussions from us, and love the characters.
Yes.
Love the lore. So looking forward to the rest of season 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let us know what you thought about this down below in the comments. And if you want all of our RWBY reactions, check out the description of this video because we got a playlist there for you. We got a link to our Patreon and get early ad-free access.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for checking out our reaction for RWBY World of Remnant episodes 13 through 16, but just keep in mind
that our reaction is definitely not definitive.